that your defense and your success on that end is directly related to your offense. You get a ton of energy from that.
Oh, Zach. Oh, wow. He went right around Shalon like he was a turnstile. Zach LaVine now with 26.
Shalon is going to have to look back at the video to even understand what just happened to him. Yeah.
Oh, on the leak out. Here's Zach. The Zach attack with the hammer. Zach LaVine on a personal run, and Jake LaRavia, that's right.
Does an excellent job of advancing the ball.
From Malik, a couple of blocks as well, and great defense on that possession. LaVine looking for more. Oh, the dude is on fire!
Yo. Good morning, everybody. Another episode of the Halftime Podcast. This is episode what, Coach?
This is episode 23, Coach.
23. How we doing today, Coach?
Doing great. Feeling good. Weather's a little bit gloomy outside here in good old Illinois, but we're still living. I don't mind it.
It's my type of weather. Makes me feel like Batman when I wake up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got to protect Gotham or what now?
Yeah, I ain't protecting shit. It just makes me feel like Batman. It makes me feel like Bruce Wayne in this bitch. Just driving through the fog thinking about how many jokers I can take out of this bitch.
Something in the rain.
Something in the rain. All right. But other than that, how's your week been so far?
It's been great. Just staying busy. I got back from my trip on Sunday, so just kind of settling back in still, but we're doing good now. Got a couple errands to run after this, but yeah, it's doing good. How about yourself, Coach? How's your week going?
My week has been interesting. It's been full of work. It's been full of some back and forth conversations with individuals who are trying to provide clarity on certain things, but it seems like they are running from certain conversations. There's been some disappointments, but there's been some good moments too. So I can't really complain. I feel like it's been a roller coaster of a week, but I wouldn't have it any other way. What's life without going through those ups and downs?
Right.
So it is what it is, but let's get into our show, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Let's get right into it. First on the docket is the Detroit Pistons. All right, look, we're Chicago Bulls fans. So this is actually blasphemous to even talk about the Detroit Pistons. But I'm going to say this because they deserve it. The Detroit Pistons have done a great job of revamping and rebuilding their entire basketball organization from top to bottom, drafting well, putting pieces that make sense around certain guys, creating a great cohesion amongst veteran players and young guys. And it appears that the Detroit Pistons are finally either here or on their way to being a team that has fully arrived and come to a true 180 of where they've been for the past 8, 10 maybe years now, because Detroit has been suffering for a minute. So how you feel about the Detroit Pistons right now, Coach? I know it's kind of hard to talk about them since we're Bulls fans, but you know, we got to be objective.
Got to give credit where credit is due.
Got to give credit where credit is due.
Right. So, I mean, the Detroit Pistons in general, they've been playing great ball. As we see, J.B. Bickerstaff got Coach of the Month. No surprise there. He's a great coach, but also the team's been performing exceptionally. Cade Cunningham is a bona fide superstar at this point, and he's only in his second year in the league, I want to say, or third.
Nah, this is like his
It's second or third, I want to say.
Nah, it's more than that. I think it's like his fourth.
Maybe. But regardless, you know, they've got a lot of young talent.
Keep talking.
Yeah, they got a lot of young talent, and Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren. I mean, the team is just loaded with young talent that is bound to make noise very, very soon. Do I think they are here? No, because I mean they're what, sixth, I believe, in the East. They're in that playoff contention spot, which is great for a young team like this. But again, I don't think their pieces are necessarily ready to go out and make a deep playoff run, which is what I really believe makes you say that they have arrived.
Yeah.
When do I think that could happen? I think as soon as next year. I think if they could get a good playoff series under their belt here and maybe pick up a couple assets in the offseason or in the draft, they have a really good chance at making some noise in the 2025-26 season.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their cap situation is. I'm not sure exactly which of their young players will be eligible for an extension. It could be a Thompson or I don't think it's Duran. I think Duran is still under his rookie contract for a few more years. But I think Asar Thompson might be the young player that might be available to get an extended contract off of his rookie contract. Maybe. I know Cade has already signed his extension, so he's already locked in. So obviously that's the main thing, making sure that you got Cade. But they're in a position. I agree with you. They have not arrived yet. They have to improve a little bit more, but they're definitely on their way. So quick little love to Detroit. But we're going to move on to our favorite game, Coach. Who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen? Number one on who's cooking. We're going to give a little bit more love to Detroit, but specifically we want to talk about Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons, the starting point guard. He has been balling this entire year, and coming off the fact that his rookie season, he got hurt. He was drafted in 2021, so this is actually his fourth year in the league. So I think his rookie season, he ended up getting hurt towards the end, and everybody was just like, bad luck, Detroit. Will Cade stay healthy? Can he, recover? Obviously, he's young, so you're assuming that he will recover. But you're just wondering, is he going to be a player that's going to be riddled with injuries, especially because this is reminiscent of the type of situation that they had with Grant Hill. Not saying that he's going to have that type of career, but, you had the same type of feeling with Grant Hill when he came to Detroit, like he was going to be a playmaking forward, changing the culture of Detroit basketball, essentially could be like their version of Michael Jordan. And there was a lot of hope around Grant Hill. And when he got hurt with all those injuries, it kind of derailed his career and took away some of that hope. So when you saw Cade having injuries early on, you were kind of just like, fuck, I don't want that to necessarily be his narrative. But one of the real reasons why I wanted to bring up Cade, not just necessarily because of the Detroit Pistons and what they're doing, but more so because of last episode, or it was either last episode or the episode before that, we talked about Anthony Edwards, who who exposed or just basically stated that he did not want to be the face of the NBA. And at first I was just like, that's crazy that he will say that, and he shouldn't have said that, but everybody gets to pick and choose if you want to have that type of weight and pressure on you. But I will say this. If Ant-Man wants to pass on it, Cade Cunningham, to me, is somebody that the NBA should look at as an American player that seems to just do the right things, talks the right way. I've seen him in some of his press conferences. He doesn't have any off the court issues, no drama in his life so far that we've seen. He's been holding himself like a model NBA player. I think Cade Cunningham is on his way in making a true name for himself, especially if the Detroit Pistons can get into the playoffs and he can perform in the playoffs on that big stage under that type of notoriety and viewership from the fans. If he plays well, he'll open the doors for an opportunity for him to be the face of the NBA.
Yeah, agreed. No rebuttal there. I mean, I've been following the guy since high school when he was at Mount Verde. It was always... They would always compare the Chino Hills roster from 2016 and Cade's roster on Mount Verde, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, Cade and them. You know what I mean? That was just one of those memes flying around. But, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, coming into this draft, when he got drafted in 21, we knew he was going to be great. We knew he was going to be great. Yeah. He was just one of those guys coming out of college or coming out of high school or college, and we just knew right away he would have an impact, and he sure did. And every year he's improving, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon.
Me neither. All right, moving on to the next guy that's cooking. And unfortunately, he's doing it for another team. That is Zach LaVine, who has finally been able to capture, I won't say an illustrious achievement in the NBA, but it's something that is good to know and good to have on your resume. He was named Player of the Week in the Western Conference with the Sacramento Kings, averaging, I think, about 24 points a game, shooting over 60% from the general field and over 60% from the three-point line, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But I want to say really quickly, does it hurt that as soon as this guy goes to Sacramento, he's getting the viewership and the look and the appreciation for what he's been doing in Chicago this entire time? Does it kind of go like, does it sting a little bit more that is almost like the thing you didn't appreciate as being so loved and adored by other people?
Oh, I mean, of course it stings. For me, it stings more because I liked Zach LaVine and I wanted to keep him and build around him.
Yeah, or at least allow him to be a part of what that next
build
was
with
going
him.
to be. Yeah,
build with him,
Mm-hmm.
and to see him balling in Sacramento, yeah, it hurts because it's like, damn, he was essentially doing the same shit in Chicago,
exact same thing.
Just nobody was giving him any credit for it.
Yeah,
and secondly, it does make me happy though because at least he's in an environment now where they want him, where people are respecting him and understanding who Zach LaVine actually is as a basketball player. That goes along with the coach and the rest of the roster, and just the organization in general. So I mean, I'm happy for Zach though. I'm glad he's found some comfort in the place he's at, and he's flourishing. He's excelling.
Yeah. All right, moving on to who should stay the fuck out the kitchen. And number one on who actually was told to get the fuck out the kitchen, Seth Jones, the former Chicago Blackhawk, has been moved for, I believe his name is Spencer Knight.
Spencer Knight
and a 2026 first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with Seth Jones' game as much as probably I should be. I have to get back into my love of hockey and the Blackhawks, seeing that I have on my Blackhawks hoodie today. But I have not been following them, and I'm gonna be honest. But I will be getting back into them because it looks like the Blackhawks are at least trying to revamp this team and be aggressive about building around Connor Bedard, which I think they should before this kid decides that he's going to fucking leave once his rookie situation is over with, once that contract is over with. But clearly, one can argue that potentially the Blackhawks won the trade because they got a future goalie prospect that looks like he can be pretty nice. And then they got a 2026 first round pick. So I guess most Blackhawks fans are at least happy with the package that we got back from the trade. I'm not sure the temperature on the fans are still happy with the way that things are going with the Blackhawks, but it does appear that they at least are trying to get the Blackhawks back in contention of being a team that can compete and potentially win the Stanley Cup again like they were, some years back.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, just to bring it back to Seth Jones, he joined the team in the 21-22 season. There were bright expectations for him. He was one of the more respected and premier defensemen in the league at that time, coming from the Columbus Blue Jackets. But in his first season with Chicago, he put up a plus-minus of -37. The year after, a -38. And then in 23-24, and then this season, a -15 and -18. So a little bit better, but granted, we can't only dictate the player on his plus-minus just simply because the team was absolute dog crap.
And usually that's what a lot of times if the team is bad, your plus-minus is going to be bad regardless.
That's just unfortunately how it works. Yeah. But again, I mean, for any Blackhawks fans or any hockey fan in general that has watched this Blackhawks team in the past 4 or 5 years or seasons, we have seen the downfall of Seth Jones since his Columbus days. He's just not the same hockey player he was just 5-6 years ago.
Right.
He's getting older. We could see that his offensive prowess isn't as much there as it was before. And when you are talking about a guy like Connor Bedard, coming out of the WHL, which is essentially just the Canadian college league, whatnot. The kid's only 19 years old, and he's already one of the most respected and one of the most hyped prospects ever, probably since Gretzky was coming into the league.
Yeah, that's who they were kind of giving him flowers to, comparisons
exactly
to, that he could be the next Gretzky.
Man, let me tell you, I was watching that draft lottery so bad because Chicago wasn't projected to get the first pick. I think we were projected to get 3 or 2. When we won that draft lottery, I'm like, fuck yeah, we got our guy. Connor Bedard this year hasn't necessarily been putting up the numbers. He hasn't looked great, but I mean, again, I don't think the situation he's in has helped him excel and flourish. Again, these Chicago sports clubs, for whatever reason, seem to have the talent in front of them, the young talent, but have a really hard time at actually giving them pieces around to help them develop. We see it in other franchises where they're able to kind of, give their young players talent, like Jaden Daniels, for example.
Right.
They put together a solid team around him, so they were just kind of able to plug and play and bring him into that lineup, and he was able to excel. But of course, you still need the talent in Jaden Daniels.
Right.
So again, Connor Bedard, I feel for him. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to be something great in this league. He's already known to be one of the better centers in the league. Just really hot prospect at the moment. And just to go over the Spencer Knight trade again, great move for the Blackhawks, in my opinion. The Blackhawks haven't had a great goaltender since Corey Crawford.
Yep.
And we remember when Corey Crawford was on the team, we were winning Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
And we see in the NHL, if you want to win the Stanley Cup, you need a solid goaltender in the net to keep that puck out of the net. And Spencer Knight is that. I mean, he's only 23 years old, and you're giving up an aging defenseman in Seth Jones, and you're also receiving a first-round pick back.
That
granted, it's from Florida, and Florida is a contending team.
Yeah.
But regardless, I mean, getting Spencer Knight, his first game as a Chicago Blackhawk in the United Center, the Blackhawks won 5-1 against the LA Kings. He had 41 saves against 42 shots, a .967 save percentage. I mean, he balled the fuck out, and I just think that's just a little glimpse of what we could see to come from Spencer Knight.
Yeah, I mean, it seems. I mean, again, if you're a Blackhawks fan, you have to be looking at this and saying that, okay, they're turning the tide on trying, right? They're turning the tide on trying. They're turning the tide on not trying to have Connor Bedard out there just basically flying solo. And that's all you can really ask for at this point. You know that it's going to be it doesn't necessarily have to be a slow build, but you know that it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yes.
But what you want to see from the Blackhawks is just them being aggressive in that process. Don't let the talent of Connor Bedard be wasted, and we don't get to see what can come out of it. Because what you don't want to happen is his frustration begins to boil over that he wants to leave the Blackhawks, and then you lose this generational talent that ends up going somewhere else, and then I won't say flourishing because he's flourishing here, but then going somewhere else and winning Stanley Cups, and you're just like, we had that in the building.
Exactly.
But moving on to the next guy that should stay the fuck out the kitchen, and that is quarterback prospect Will Howard. Look, Will.
Oh, damn it, Will.
Goddamn. Will, sometimes when you get invited to the combine, you should probably say no. Sometimes it's okay as a quarterback to say, you know what? I think I need to showcase myself in a more controlled environment. I think for the quarterback position, and specifically for the quarterback position, if you are a quarterback that is going in if it's knowledge known and everybody knows that your best opportunity to get drafted is like the 7th round, then you should go to the combine as a quarterback. Any other prospect that can potentially be drafted as a quarterback from the 3rd round and up, you should stay your ass away from the combine.
Interesting. Okay.
And you should potentially work yourself and showcase yourself at a pro day at your school and deal with receivers that you're comfortable with. Because it was clear and obvious at that combine, he had no rhythm and no timing with those receivers that were out there.
No.
He had no type of understanding of where to put the ball, how to put the ball, where they would be when they broke on certain routes. Sometimes it damn near felt like he didn't even know what route they were fucking running.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, he did himself a major disservice at that combine. Now, there could be somebody that could say he had one bad day. We got a whole bunch of film on him. He's a guy that was a part of a national championship winning team. So you can look past all that and say, we know what we got at him. But if you were somebody that was on the fence about Will Howard, thinking about taking him in a certain position, this combine did nothing but make you say, you know what? Never mind. And so I think that's what I mean by, like, if you are a quarterback prospect that is projected to be a third rounder or up, stay away from the combine. If you're somebody that they're basically saying you're probably at best a 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick, maybe even an undrafted quarterback, then the combine is where you need to go to try to prove yourself. So I think you have to weigh your options. Everybody else, for the most part, go to the combine still, all the other skill positions and stuff like that. It still behooves you. But other quarterbacks, depending on where you're projected to go, the combine can sometimes, as we see, screw you.
Yeah, no doubt. Just a quick note on Will Howard's combine. I mean, that was probably one of the worst quarterback drill days I've ever seen in the NFL combine. The ball was going all over the place.
Yeah.
On out routes, he was consistently throwing them out of bounds. Even on crossing in routes, overthrowing them. We know you can't overthrow a receiver throwing in the middle of the field. It's an interception every time.
Just about.
And that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, there were some doubts with Will Howard kind of throughout the whole Ohio State season. Even coming into the Natty game, people had their doubts about Will Howard. He showed up every single game. He played the best he could.
Right.
He played well in the national championship game, I thought. Made some very clutch throws down the stretch, and I think that's probably what's boosted a lot of his stock from that game. But I think this combine really brought it back down to reality. I think there was a lot of unmerited hype around Will Howard. He's a massive human being, no doubt.
Right.
Just a big quarterback, which is great to have, and he's pretty fucking mobile too. So he's kind of got that Josh Allen type of build. He could kind of sling it a bit, but again, you need to be accurate, especially if you're going to show up on Combine Day. Which
I agree.
Let's go ahead and get into the halftime report, because I got some really, really different things to talk about these draft stocks rising and falling.
Halftime report! My voice cracked. That was funny. Yeah. All right, well then, you wanted to get into it. You started off then. Where are we at with the halftime report on the top of the docket?
So, yeah, I mean, just real quick, when we're talking about draft stocks rising and falling, of course, we talked about Will Howard's draft stock falling a bit. I think quarterbacks like Jackson Dart had himself a really good combine. He might be one of those guys projected to go in the first round now. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers take him at 21 if Shador goes early. And I think other guys like Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, projected to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. His stock rose as well. Quinshon Judkins out of Ohio State.
Right.
A lot of these running backs showed up and have themselves a really good combine.
Right.
So I think we saw from the skill position group and also the linebacker group and also the offensive lineman balled out again this year in the combine.
Right.
Was really nice to see. But when we look at a guy like Shador Sanders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Allegedly, supposedly projected to be
A first-round pick.
a first-round pick, top 2 quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Probably 2. He ain't 1, but he's 2 in the eyes of most.
Well, it just depends on.
Again, it does depend, right?
Because now we're hearing rumors that New York is willing to move up to number 1.
I saw that, but I think if they do that, they're going after Cam Ward. But that's another conversation. But anyways, yeah, when you do look at a guy like Shador that did decide to sit out of the combine, and even without participating in the combine, I think we also saw more stories come out, and it almost seemingly looked like his draft stock fell a little bit just because of some of the interviews he was having, some of the things he was saying, maybe the way he was presenting himself. I'm not too sure what was going on there. So go ahead, fill me in with what you saw, Coach.
They just basically he just said that if people wanted to draft him, that they have to be comfortable with changing their culture, because where he comes from, he's come from a situation where he went to Jackson State, changed that culture into a winning franchise. or winning college HBCU. Went to Colorado and turned them around. They were a very bad college team. And they went there, him, his brother, Travis Hunter, his father, Deion Sanders, they went there and changed the culture of Colorado and turned them into a winning college program. And so essentially he got on the podium and said, like, if you're not comfortable with changing the things that you do in your culture, if you're not comfortable with changing the things that you do in your franchise to be a winning franchise, then I'm not the guy for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what reporters wrote was that obviously it was arrogant, it was bombastic, it was brash, it was all of these things because he wasn't going up there and being humble and being like, well, whoever drafts me, I'll just be elated to be in the NFL. It's like there's this I think it's interesting when we talk about like sports and nepotism. And it's funny and ironic how in some situations and scenarios, the nepotism is seen as okay depending on who's utilizing it. Because just for the sake of compare and contrast, when Eli Manning was on his way into the NFL and he was, I guess, chartered to go to these, I guess at the time was San Diego Chargers. His father basically came out and said, if the San Diego Chargers even attempt to draft his son, he won't play.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way he plays there. And his father was an NFL quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. So in that instance, I don't think the vitriol that the Manning family got for basically telling the NFL, my son is going to go to New York, was that much of a pushback. I don't know if they received the same type of vitriol, but somehow when it comes down to Shador and Deion, there is this notion that Deion shouldn't be involved, and Deion and his son have no place in basically trying to force Shador to certain places, and that the kid should just be grateful that he gets a chance to play in the NFL. And it's like, I think that's interesting. I find that personally interesting, that is how this seems to be, that one group can practice their nepotism with no issues and the other group can practice their nepotism with problems and arrogance.
It's almost like a double standard.
Yeah. It kind of is like a double standard, but I want to chalk it up to, this is something that I've learned over my lifetime. It's just that people have an issue with unproven arrogance. People have an issue when you are cocky before you have, quote unquote, proved it to them, right? Confidence is okay, but when it's exuded with such pride, people have issues with that, and they take it as like a form of like, who the fuck do you think you are? But it's like, I am who I am. That's the only reason why I'm at this podium. I am who I am. That's the only reason why y'all think I can be in the NFL. So why am I supposed to not show up here and be just as confident, just as, if you call it arrogant, but just as arrogant or whatever the case may be? Why would I then lose it in this moment? Why would I not still exude that same type of confidence and brashness and boldness that got me to this point, that got me to be an NFL prospect? I didn't make it here by telling myself that I could be just like everybody else.
Very true.
So sometimes it confuses me when people have such an issue when players or any individual and just in life is very open about who they are and confident in what they can bring to the table.
I mean, I would argue the same case for Caleb Williams last year. I think a lot of people didn't like who he was. He painted his nails. He was a little bit different than everybody else.
Yeah.
And people didn't like that. People like the hard, grindy, football guy and all this other shit. They don't want to see their their quarterback throwing the ball and, having a BEARS on their fingernails. But, I mean, shit, if the guy could ball, though. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll say, at least specifically for Chicago, it's a little different because we did have Jim McMahon, who was also a little kind of, he was a little quirky. And we also had Dennis Rodman, who was also a little quirky. So Chicago is a little bit of a different market. But
we're more accepting
but
I
understand what you're saying. I think more so with Caleb, not saying that it's any different because he came in with the same confidence. I think the only thing with Caleb was his only thing was that he came in basically telling the punter, like, you're never going to see the field. That's a little bit different. That's
very true.
Yeah, that's a little bit different from just being like, I know I'm great. I know what I bring to the table, and I'm going to do my best to showcase exactly who I am. My man's came in and told the punter, you ain't going to be doing no, we ain't going to need you, basically. Like, we wasted the 4th round pick on you. Yeah. So, like, that's a little bit different, but I still understand what you're saying. Like, there's still some hate in that. Like, if you're going to talk like this, you got to back it up. But that part about it, I do agree with. If you're going to talk like that, you do have to back it up.
Yes.
But when it comes down to Shedeur, just to sum him up, they, like I said, the practice of nepotism gets chartered differently for different situations, and I don't like the lack of consistency there. If it's okay for the goose, it should be okay for the gander, as some people say. So if they can get away with it and talk about it and use it to their favor, why can't this group use it to their favor and vice versa? I don't really care about I'm not trying to really make it the issue of ethnicity and race and stuff like that, which using those comparisons, someone can go, oh, see, here he goes. But it's like, that's the reality of those two situations. So you can take that as you see fit. But moving on from Shedeur, I want to talk about another guy who I think regarding the combine obviously didn't participate as much, but is going to need surgery, and that's Abdul Carter. And my question for you is, now that he is going to have to undergo surgery before the draft and things like that, do you think Abdul Carter is going to slide out of the projected top 3 ranks in which most people feel like he's going to go? Most people feel like he's not going to fall more than 4. But do you think that now that he's going to have surgery prior to the draft, won't be in the combine and things like that, has he done enough on film to where people will say, fuck the injury, he'll have that surgery, I'm still going to get this blue-collar, blue-chip player, and he'll still end up going top 4? Do you think this injury will now move things and shake things around to where a player like a Mason Graham ends up taking that Abdul Carter spot?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Abdul Carter drops no further than 4.
Okay. So you think the injury, having to have surgery, that doesn't take away from anything?
I don't think so, simply because I think he already had the surgery. I think he's already rehabbing. He's already getting himself back onto the football field and starting to work out. So I'm sure by his pro day, he might be ready to go.
Okay.
I think it's something that they stated. So, I mean, maybe his pro day will be telling. I'm sure they won't have him go 110 simply because he'll be fresh off of that injury, fresh off the rehabbing and all of that. But I think, to answer your question, yeah, I do think there's enough film, there's enough tape on Abdul Carter and enough film and just enough of everything from him where you could confidently say, okay, whatever, he's going to have his surgery, he's going to rehab, he'll be ready by the time we pick him in April's draft. I mean, again, he's one of those bona fide guys that I think we know is going to automatically come in and make that impact. We were thinking maybe he goes top 3. Maybe that changes now. Maybe he goes forward to New England. Maybe a trade happens at 4. Who knows? But
you don't think he's going to fall further than 4?
I don't think so. I mean, I think if anything, maybe Travis Hunter goes before him in that top 3 spot instead of Abdul Carter. The whole time, the understanding was Abdul was going to go top 3. Now I think maybe he goes to 4. And Travis maybe takes one of those 3 spots in the top 3.
Okay. All right, well, moving on from that to our next segment in the halftime report, Kyrie Irving. He's done for the season, torn ACL, projected to not come back until February of 2026, I think, which is obviously next season.
A whole year from
so that's
now.
A whole year from now. He has a player option on his contract for next season that he can opt out of. If he opts out, he's projected to be able to sign an extension worth up to, I think, 4 to 5 years, $313 million from the Dallas Mavericks. My question for you, though, because I don't necessarily want to get into the minutia of now that Kyrie is hurt, that Luka trade just seems more idiotic and all that other stuff. Because we can go back and forth about that, but we know Dallas fans right now, or people who are fans of Luka, are just salivating at the fact that AD is hurt and Kyrie is hurt and Nico Harrison should be taken out the side of the barn and shot. So a lot of them, for real, they feel like he should be put down like a rabid dog. But my question for you is, now that Kyrie is done for the season, how does this now shape up the Western Conference playoff picture? And just so you got a little context, the Western Conference now has the play-in now is the Timberwolves at 7, Sacramento at 8, the Clippers at 9, and the Mavericks at 10, with the Suns in the 11th spot, 3 games behind the Mavericks right now. Yeah. So with that being said, how does this injury reshape the Western Conference playoff picture in your opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Mavericks take a massive downfall from where they're at now. Again, Anthony Davis isn't back, Daniel Gafford isn't back, and now Kyrie Irving is out for the remember of the season.
Yeah, and Anthony Davis might get shut down too.
Right, I did see that as well. Shams Charania was reporting on that. Which honestly, again, when we were having our conversations pre-show, it might be a smart move to shut down Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Simply because I think you are aware on the capacity and the limit that this team has this season with Kyrie Irving being out.
Yeah.
Right now, as it is, you don't necessarily have a suitable point guard to come in and fill that role that Kyrie filled. Nobody's going to come close to that. But even to be serviceable, I mean, you got Dante Exum, you got Spencer Dinwiddie.
And that's it. That's pretty much
that's
point guard.
That's essentially it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think the Dallas Mavericks definitely fall out of that 10 spot. They don't make the play-in for sure.
And Phoenix, do you think Phoenix takes that number 10 spot?
Dude, I don't know, man. Phoenix's defense is really concerning to me. Dude, if anything, I could see a world where maybe Portland goes on a little run and they sneak into that 10 spot. I could see that happening.
You see Portland overtaking,
possibly
moving up 2 spots?
Yeah, I mean, the Portland Trailblazers are only a game back from the Suns.
They are.
And, of course, that makes them 4 games back from the Mavericks. But like I said, Dallas in their last 10, they're 5-5. So are the Trailblazers. But I think Dallas in their next 10 are going to go about 2-8. I think they're really going to fall off a cliff. So, I mean, honestly, it's really between Phoenix and Portland. I think those are your 2 teams that maybe make a run. Maybe San Antonio gets into the mix. I don't know, but I don't think they're close enough.
They're more concerned about the draft. They're trying to add that last piece to the De'Aaron Fox, Wemby, and Devin Vassell makeup. They're trying to figure out what last great young player they can add into that mix to play. I guess probably they'll be looking for a forward to be next to Wembanyama. And once they have that, then they'll be all in on trying to figure out the veterans and everything else to push the De'Aaron Fox, Wemby, Vassell, and that new player that they get in this draft forward. So I look at it and say that most likely what's going to happen is I do think Phoenix is going to take that number 10 spot, and I think Dallas is going to fall to 12. I think Portland is probably going to end up in the 11th seed, and Dallas is going to fall all the way to 12, which will give them a chance of getting maybe a top 14 lottery pick in the 2025 draft, which is actually still good too, because not saying that you're going to replace Luka, but if you have the chance of being able to get a lottery prospect in this 2025 draft, you get a good chance of getting
No. Go ahead. They better hope they get somebody, because for the next 4 years after this, they don't own their first round pick.
Yeah, I know.
So they need somebody in this draft if they want any chance.
And that could be part of it as well. Maybe part of this is the foresight of knowing, like, we don't own our rights to our drafts for the next few years. This is our last, not our last, but this is a immediate chance to try to go get a player in a deep draft, and maybe they might go into this draft depending on where they fall. They might decide to trade up. Maybe they move a PJ Washington and something else to move up into the draft to go get a guy that they feel like can be a potential superstar in the future to play with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis when they return back and are healthy.
Yeah.
So when I look at it from that perspective, I look at it and say, I agree with you in the sense of like at this point Dallas should be on the mission to lose as many games possible and just kind of let Phoenix and Portland figure out who's going to get that last play-in spot, because I do believe regardless I don't see Phoenix or Portland being able to move up to number 9 unless the Clippers just literally fall off a cliff. The Clippers are in a situation, not this subject isn't about them, the segment isn't about them, but particularly for them, the only way they're just in a situation where when Norman Powell returns, then we'll finally see what the real Clippers can look like.
Yeah.
Right now, they're without Norman Powell, which has been basically their leading scorer all season long. Once he returns, then you have James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Norman Powell mixed in with everybody else. When that happens, then we'll finally be able to see a little bit of what the LA Clippers can kind of be like in full form. So I don't see them falling from 9, but I think the Suns and the Trailblazers will be fighting for that 10th spot that was previously owned by Dallas.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, moving on to our next segment. Paul George, no more podcast P. His statement is he is going to focus on trying to win a title with the Philadelphia 76ers. Coach, the Philadelphia 76ers are sitting in the 12th spot at 21-40. Now, here's the kicker.
I'm listening.
Here's the kicker. There are only 2.5 games out of the 10th spot behind the Chicago Bulls, who are 24-38. So regardless of how terrible the Philadelphia 76ers have been all season, there is a world where Paul George and the Philadelphia 76ers can find themselves in the play-in and actually find themselves as an 8 seed in the playoffs to go against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So as crazy as it sounds to hear this man say, after the entire season has basically been fucking terrible, and these guys have been in and out between him and Joel Embiid and himself, Paul George has underperformed immensely, and the only thing that has kept the Philadelphia fans from showing up to Sixer games with guns and bats and Mazel Tov bombs and cocktails and shit like that. Only reason why they haven't done it is because the Eagles won a Super Bowl. So that's the only thing keeping the Philadelphia fans off of their ass. You tell me now that you're going to stop doing the podcast to focus on potentially getting into the playoffs and winning the championship. At first, I was like, this is some bullshit, until I realized that they actually could make the play-in and actually could make the playoffs. What are your thoughts on the fact that they have spent an entire season basically being horrific, and based upon the fact that the bottom of the East is so closely bad, the Philadelphia 76ers could actually fuck around and not only end up with a decent draft pick in the 2025 draft selection and potentially lottery, but still also make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I just think in any world right now, if Philly was to make the play-in and eventually the playoffs, it would be so bad for the league.
Why? Explain why you say that.
Because the highest they would get is 10, and then if they do end up making it to the playoffs, meaning that they would end up playing the 1 seed in the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nobody's trying to see that shit. Cleveland will dog walk their ass, and nobody's gonna watch that whole series.
Wow.
They will dog walk, like belt to ass every single game.
Yeah, no. So no.
They will, because Tyrese Maxey has been playing like absolute shit. Paul George was to focus on the podcast, so now he's got to get himself back in a basketball mentality and shape. Joel Embiid is a lost cause, and who else do you really have on that team? About fucking nobody.
No. I'm not going to be that disrespectful.
Well, regardless, I just don't think that just to answer the question, I do just believe it's too late to start getting focused if your goal is to win a title with the 76ers. I think that should have been a goal for next season, but for this season, I think you're way out of your head.
So looking at the roster, right? So Jared McCain is hurt, but this is still the pieces that they have on the team. Joel Embiid is not officially done. He has not been officially counted out for the season. Paul George is obviously playing. Tyrese Maxey is back. Kelly Oubre Jr. is a part of their rotation. Andre Drummond is still a part of their rotation. Quentin Grimes is still there, who just dropped 44 a couple days ago. And you still have Eric Gordon and Kyle Lowry. I'm not saying that they have the greatest roster in the world. Don't get it twisted. What I am saying, though, is if you can get Joel Embiid for 24 minutes a game, and you got Paul George and Tyrese Maxey, with Kelly Oubre being scrappy, Andre Drummond, who we know can be a great backup and give you serviceable minutes, as we've seen in his time in Chicago. You still got Quentin Grimes, who is a decent shooting guard prospect that's still young, and Eric Gordon, who's a proven playoff shooter and performer, with Kyle Lowry, who's an NBA champion. I'm not saying that they beat Cleveland, but I don't think Cleveland just washes the floor with them, as you suggested. I do think that there's a world where that series can be a lot more competitive than you give it credit for.
I don't think so. I think it's not necessarily as bad as Philadelphia is. I just think that's how good Cleveland is.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in Cleveland just yet.
Well, I don't think they're going to do shit in the playoffs either. But I think the first round it's a sweep.
Yeah,
it's
so
a sweep.
I do want to lean a little bit more on your point, though, when you said it'll be bad for the league. The reason why I think it would be bad for the league because it sets a new precedent on how you can maintain getting a good pick while simultaneously making the playoffs. The Philadelphia 76ers will do exactly what I wanted the Bulls to do, which is be bad enough to secure a top 10 pick, but be still in contention enough to maintain a play-in position.
Yeah.
And then once the regular season is over with and the play-in is there, now you go full throttle and make the playoffs.
Right.
That's what it seems like the Philadelphia 76ers may end up pulling off, is they may end up pulling off the heist of a lifetime. Getting still an opportunity to get a top 14 pick in the 2025 draft based upon their record while simultaneously making the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, of course, yeah, that's what we both wanted Chicago to do. And if Philadelphia was able to do it, it's great for Philadelphia. But again, like we said, not for the league.
No, because again, I agree with you. It will set a bad precedent on how teams will go forward.
Yeah.
Any team in situations similar to this will follow the Philadelphia model. But
I'll tell you what.
But Philadelphia has been the torchbearer on how a lot of teams have followed the model of tanking and a lot of different things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones that's the torchbearer for being able to pull this off.
Sure, I wouldn't be surprised either. And to be honest, I would applaud them because, I mean, if they were able to pull something like this off, it would be, never really seen before. Like where you could secure a top 10 pick and then
top
also
14. It'd probably be top 14.
Right, but still, I mean, probably top 10
10,
because of how bad the East is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and how
true.
good the West is. So, probably top 10, and then
still make the playoffs.
You still at least a playing game. You know what I mean?
Nah, they'll make the playoffs. If they get into the play-in game, they're going against right now. The number 9 seed is the Hawks. They're going to beat the Hawks.
Yeah, they would probably beat them.
They're going to beat the Hawks in that game.
They got the Magic and the Heat. How are the Heat the 20? Jesus Christ, 29. The drop off after the 6th seed is really bad.
First of all, how did the Magic go from being like a top 3 team to being
injuries? They got hit with the injury bug so bad this year.
Banchero was out for a while, and then right after Banchero was out, came back. Franz ended up going down for a while.
I think Jalen Suggs is out for a considerable time now too. So
injuries have really derailed the Magic season. But okay, moving on from Podcast P. Time to talk about the Bears a little bit. Let's switch to the NFL and really dive in on what's happening right now with our beloved Bears. So Trey Smith has signed a non-exclusive tag with the Kansas City Chiefs, or at least that's the projected thing that will happen. With this non-exclusive tag, it basically means like he's a restricted free agent in a sense that he can go out and fish for other contracts, and the Kansas City Chiefs will most likely allow him to sign with that team. But the team that is willing to give him a contract of that magnitude that would cause him to leave will have to forfeit 2 first-round picks to the Kansas City Chiefs in order to get that deal solidified. So essentially, unless a team is completely just sold on the fact that Trey Smith is the missing piece on their offensive line and they completely need him in order to be successful, there's a strong chance that Trey Smith ends up back in Kansas City. So I remember us discussing, I think it was last episode where we talked about that you had to pay Trey Smith, and I was on the fence of saying that Kansas City will find a way to keep him. And I won't say that you were like, nah, that won't happen, but you were kind of like, it's going to be hard for them to do that. And like, they don't have the money in the cap space. And I was just a little bit more adamant about they're going to figure out a way. They're going to find out and figure this shit out. How are you feeling about the fact that Kansas City looks like they are in, I guess, the driver's seat on like, either way, they're going to come out with a W. We're either going to get 2 first-round picks, or we're going to keep the guy or we're going to keep our guard.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes Kansas City a great franchise. You know what I mean? They always find a way to make it a win-win for themselves. A win-win meaning, you know, if nobody wants to deal with it, they get Trey Smith back for at least another year.
Yeah.
And if somebody does, you get 2 first-round compensatory draft picks, which we know are so valuable in the NFL.
Absolutely. And a team like them would definitely need it because they're always winning.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think the move to a lot of people was surprising. There wasn't much reporting saying like, oh, they're gonna franchise tag Trey Smith and yada yada yada. I think it was smart that they went with the non-exclusive tag instead of just going with the exclusive tag.
Right.
Because the exclusive is just like we hear like T. Higgins got. It's just a guaranteed contract and he's for sure playing for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. Not the case for Trey Smith. It's smart. I could also see a world where maybe they do try to end up trading Trey Smith in a package, maybe not necessarily for picks, but maybe for a player, and maybe a couple of other picks. Because if you look at some of these teams, I can't really name any off the top of my head that would make such move. But instead of trying to sign Trey Smith to an illustrious contract, which they would have to do in order to secure him, and Kansas City not to match it, you still got to give up 2 first-round picks. Now, what if you were going to go ahead and trade maybe a guy on defense, maybe somebody on the linebacking core, which Kansas City could use? I don't know who that end up being, but just for an example, you trade him and maybe a second, maybe a couple seconds, maybe a third, you know what I mean? And then it looks more attainable and more realistic to trade for Trey Smith. I mean, again, just because he got the non-exclusive tag doesn't mean he's secure in Kansas City. Of course, he could still get signed, but I think a trade isn't far-fetched either because, I mean, we saw it last year with L'Jarius Sneed.
Right.
They tagged him, I believe, on the same tag, and they traded him for a third-round pick. So I think I would love to know how they work out, like how many compensatory picks a team receives depending on the value of the player.
Well, I think if they just trade him, then they're just trading him for whatever the package deal is. I think.
Well, yes, yeah.
I think the only way they get compensatory picks is if they're not looking to trade, and he just goes and signs.
Well, I was saying like how I wonder it works is like L'Jarius Sneed. Like I wonder how many picks like they would have gotten. I don't remember what it was last season, but like if somebody just.
If he
did
just
the restricted free agent move,
if he would have just signed elsewhere, how many picks they would have got?
Right, because that I don't remember.
Well, I know. With this move, it's just a win-win for them. If somebody is desperate enough to give up 2 first-round picks for Trey Smith, or give up like an elite defensive player that they feel like would be useful for them, just say for sake of shits and giggles, if the Bears were willing to trade Tremaine Edmonds and the number 39 pick. And a future second-round pick or something like that to get Trey Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs, and they don't have to give up 2 first-round picks in order to get him. If the Bears were able to do something like that or thought about doing something like that, then maybe Kansas City go, okay, Tremaine Edmonds, couple second-round picks, 1 for this year, 1 for another year, and you get Trey Smith, cool. We can deal with that. That at least gives us a chance in the second round to find the Trey Smith replacement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can see a world where potentially something like that happens. But will it happen? I don't know. Again, it just depends on the nature, or not the nature, but the magnitude of whether or not Kansas City actually wants to move on from Trey Smith. I feel like for them, I think the base minimum would be the compensatory first round picks. Like, I think they're settled in on saying, no, you just sign somewhere and we get those picks, or a team would have to give us those picks, right? It would have to, we're still going to look for these first round picks regardless. Yeah. Unless, like I said, like you said, unless there is an elite defensive player that a team is willing to give up. Like if you're trading Myles Garrett to us for Trey Smith, then sure. And we can figure that out in some type of way, then cool. Maybe we can make that work. But short of that, I don't see Kansas City moving on from Trey Smith for just somebody giving them some pieces and some third-round picks. I don't see that happening. Yeah. But sticking on the Bears, because it was, a big thing in Bears community that we're going to go after Trey Smith. We're going to go after Trey Smith. Trey Smith to Chicago. Trey Smith to Chicago. He played with Darnell Wright. We're going to make it work. We're going to pay him. We're going to be one of those teams that can we got all this money in cap and blah, 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 blah. And now that this has happened, we find out that the Bears have traded a conditional 6th-round pick to the Los Angeles Rams for Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson, who had his only Pro Bowl season, I think in 2021 or 2022, when he played with Detroit when Ben Johnson was the passing game coordinator. So we have traded for a guard that Ben Johnson is familiar with. He predominantly plays at left guard, which still gives people the belief that Trey Smith can still be on the move or potentially be a target for the Bears to play right guard. But I do want to specifically say that as far as the Bears fans should know that we do have a guard in Tevin Jenkins, who is a free agent that we could bring back. And technically, his best season as a Bears offensive lineman was at right guard. So if you have moved to find your left guard in Jonah Jackson, I do see a world where it's potentially cheaper to pay Tevin Jenkins to be the right guard versus what you would have to pay and the picks you would have to give up to get Trey Smith to play the right guard position. So my question is, do you see the Jonah Jackson move as a way to pivot, not necessarily for that particular position at right guard, but as a way to pivot and position yourself as a franchise as far as understanding, well, we got the left guard, maybe we can move Tevin back to right guard and we can just kind of lock in and focus on maybe Drew Dahlman as a center for the Chicago Bears going forward, and we can flesh out our line with Braxton, Jonah, Dahlman, Jenkins, and Darnell, and that can be your starting group. Do you see that as the pivot in the Jonah Jackson response to what happened with Trey Smith for the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, I think the pivot was really like just a safety net, considering the thing with Trey Smith. What I saw in reports was that Ryan Poles is still actively pursuing Trey Smith, trying to make something work. If that ends up happening, we'll see. But my prediction on how this offensive line will work based on this move. Mm-hmm. Again, this is a Ben Johnson move because he played under Ben Johnson in Detroit, had his best years in Detroit with Ben Johnson as passing game coordinator.
Right.
What I predict that this Bears offensive line is going to look like next year, I think Tevin Jenkins is gone. I don't think he's coming back. I think it'll be Braxton at left tackle. I think it'll be Jonah Jackson at left guard, Drew Dahlman at center. I think we signed Kevin Zeitler from Detroit and bring him to play right guard. And then you got Darnell Wright at right tackle. The only reason why Kevin Zeitler might make sense is because, again, you've got a guy that is accustomed to the Ben Johnson scheme. Again, I'm not necessarily pro to that because, this is a first-time head coach. you don't really want to make moves just simply based on what the offense, like on what your head coach.
On what he just wants.
Exactly. So especially as a first-time head coach, he's not proven.
You should be trying to get the best talent possible.
Right,
at
but
all
I
times.
think the only reason why it can make sense is because Kevin Zeitler, he's old. He's 34, 35 years old. He'll be going for cheap. He won't be a big contract. I think at most he'll cost us $8 million average per year, and probably a 1-year deal. So, I mean, again, if you could do that, that is an upgrade over Tevin. And then in the draft, then I think you could go ahead and still draft offensive line. So you have the replacement for Kevin Zeitler. He could be the starter after, this 25-26 season. And then you also have him as rotational in case Jonah Jackson gets hurt, in case one of those guys on the interior line gets hurt.
So are you drafting that offensive lineman at number 10?
Possibly. Maybe you trade back. Maybe you drop to 12 or 14, depending on who's on the board and who got taken. I don't see a world anymore necessarily where the Bears take Genty at 10. I think
you don't.
I don't know. I feel like just based on this move, and if they were to go and pursue Kevin Zeitler, I think they would want, again, that type of action like they made with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze, where they signed the veteran, they draft his replacement.
I can see the understanding of that, but I also look at it like, I think people think Tevin Jenkins is gone, and I guess I'm just feeling like,
I don't think it's necessarily the Bears that want him gone. I think Tevin is ready to get the fuck out of here, is what I think.
Oh, you think he wants to leave?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But then that's a little different, because if I'm looking at it from that perspective, I feel like I have my guy at right guard in Tevin, because that's what he played his best at. I think I have him. He's young. He's 25.
Mm-hmm.
He can be coached. We have a better offensive line coach. For me, if I'm the Bears, I'm looking at it like, you can still get the stopgap if you want as a backup, but I look at it like, if we get Jonah, who's 20-something, you get Tevin Jenkins, who's 25, Dahlman will probably be the oldest guy on the line. I think, yeah.
He's still young, though.
Yeah,
he's coming
I think
off
so.
his
Young.
rookie deal.
What is he, like 20? He's probably like 25 too, right? Like 24, 25.
Drew Dahlman's 26.
26. So yeah,
I think Braxton's technically your oldest guy on that line.
Is Braxton older than that?
I believe he's right around there. So regardless, it would be a really young
it'd be
line.
a younger line. But my point is like, if I'm the Bears, I would be firmly discussing like, why don't we just move Tevin back to right guard, because that's where he was his most successful, and we got Jonah coming in at left guard. We have it right there. And then you can go into the draft making greater decisions. Do we slide up for Abdul? Do we move for Mason Graham? Do we sit still and just get Genty? I think if you go into the draft under the premise that you have that you signed, I guess that's hiring too, that you signed Zeitler to be your offensive right guard for 1 year, and you're finna find his younger replacement, then you kind of pigeonhole yourself to saying, like, in the first round, we have to walk away with the best potential offensive lineman that we see fit. I think if you go with Tevin, then you get to walk in that first round with a little bit of flexibility on what you can do. Do we move? Like I said, do you move for Abdul? Do you move for Mason Graham? Or do you walk into the draft and say, hey, Dallas, 12 and Micah Parsons for our number 10 and a future, right? Do you walk? Because now at that point, you can walk out of that draft with Micah Parsons, and you can still get you a guard or a tackle.
We'll cover this on another episode.
Yeah, we will.
This could go on very
lengthy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just look at that and say, like, I think the Bears should look at Tevin Jenkins to stay at right guard.
I would like it. I just think Tevin's ready to go, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think he might ask for a lot of money.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and pivot to the last section, the last portion.
The halftime predictions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So
they not ready. They not ready. They not ready.
So, funny enough, it's actually the first time where we're talking about, again, we mentioned hockey earlier. Fans got to see some of our NHL expertise. It ain't much of it, but we got some.
Yeah,
all right.
we're gonna get better at it though. We're gonna dive into it a little bit more.
Another area of sport we haven't necessarily covered, and what I really want to start covering, is the UFC. I know our guy Brian over here, Audio Hive, follows them too, so I'm sure it's more enjoyable for him to hear us talk about this than football all the goddamn time. So, but yeah, this weekend, March 8th, we got UFC 313 coming up in Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. We've got some great fights on the main card. Again, you've got the face. You've got Chama. You've got Alex Pereira. He's going against Ankalaev, again, part of that Dagestani type of group there. You've got Justin Gaethje coming back again, facing Rafael Fiziev. He was supposed to face somebody else. I forget who the bout got canceled against. We got Jalen Turner. We've got some great names. Let's go ahead and break it down all the way from the early prelims. A couple of these guys I know, some of them I don't, so let's just go ahead, breeze through with some of these predictions.
So early prelims.
Go ahead, start all the way. You could go all the way.
All right, I'm gonna go. All right, Diaz Santos. I'm gonna go Diaz. Santos Marshall. I'm gonna go Santos.
Oh, see. This is the outdated card because he ain't facing Dan Hooker. That's who it was supposed to be.
Okay.
But and I know some of these early prelim fights are changed as well. But
okay. Well, give me the new lineup then.
Yeah. So Diaz Santos is on the card. Who you got there?
Okay, I got Diaz.
Okay. Yeah, I was also going to take Diaz in that one. We do have Santos and Marshall on the card as well.
I got Santos.
I'm gonna take Francis Marshall in that one.
Okay.
I think he could be something decent and bright in this UFC. The O'Neal Hardy fight got canceled, so now it's Chris Gutierrez out of the U.S. and John Castaneda also from the U.S. John Castaneda is the favorite. Who do you got?
I think for that one, I'm gonna go with Castaneda too.
Okay, just the favorite. I'm gonna go ahead. I like my underdogs. I like my dogs. So I'm gonna take Chris Gutierrez in that. Okay. Let's go ahead and move into the prelims now. First fight on the prelims. Let's see if it's on here. Yes, it is. Alex Morono versus Carlos Leal. Who do you got there?
You know what? I think I like Morono for that one.
You like Morono? Okay, yeah, he comes in as a plus 600, pretty decent underdog, but
I think I like him for that one.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go with the favorite here, Carlos Leal. Yeah. He's a pretty solid fighter for sure. Next fight on the card is an on here. Yes, it is. It's the one on the left here. Bruno Ferreira versus Arman Petrosyan. Again, we've got Armen as the favorite. Armen from Armenia. That's kind of funny. But yeah, for me, I'm a believer in my Brazilians. I'm gonna go ahead and take Bruno Ferreira on this one. I'm gonna go
with Petrosyan.
Okay.
I think he's going to. I think he's gonna game plan a little better for this one.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next fight on the card. It is that fight all the way to the right, but it did get replaced. Joshua Vaughn versus Ray Tsuruya, I believe. Sorry if I butchered it, out of Japan. Joshua Vaughn does come as a minus 192 favorite in that fight. I'm gonna go ahead and take my Japanese man here. I'm going with Ray.
I'm gonna go with Vaughn.
Alrighty. And then we got one more. We got a heavyweight. We got a heavyweight bout on the prelim. I love when we get some heavyweight bouts on the prelims. They're always entertaining. Okay. It's not on here, but they added it. We got rank 5 Curtis Blades against Rizvian Kuneyev from Russia. Looks like also a Dagestani man. I hate my Dagestanis. I do not like them. But give me rank 5 Curtis Blades. It's surprising to see him on the prelims, but I'm definitely taking Curtis Blades in this one.
I'm going to take Curtis too, but I'm waiting for him to take that next level in his career. I'm waiting for him to get to that next level.
We'll see about that.
So I'm gonna take him for this one.
Alrighty, yeah. Let's go ahead, hit the main card now. Starting with King Gring and Mauricio Rufy. That is the first fight of that main card, lightweight bout.
I got
no
Green.
odds here, but yeah, I'm also gonna go ahead and take King Gring. I do think Rufy can make some noise. He's had a couple of decent fights in this last couple.
But this one ain't gonna be the one.
Okay, I like that. Next fight, we got a women's strawweight bout. Amanda Lemos and Yasmin Lucindo. Let's see who comes in as the favorite. Yasmin comes in as the favorite. Amanda is the higher ranked fighter. Who you got there?
I'm gonna go Lucindo.
You going Lucindo?
Yeah.
All right. She is the favorite. Number 7 versus number 5 there. Lucindo is number 7. That would jump her up in the ranks, of course.
I'm
But
gonna go Lucindo.
I'll agree with you on that one. I'm going to go Lucindo on that. Here's an entertaining fight. We got a lightweight bout. Number 13, Jalen Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. He's unranked. He's from Chile. He comes in as the favorite of this fight. Give me Jalen Turner, though, man. I love me some Jalen Turner.
I'm going to go with Turner, too.
I think Ignacio's going to make this a tough fight just because of
But I think Turner has the experience.
Yeah, I think Turner's a bit explosive too.
Yeah.
I think if he could catch some rhythm and some confidence early on in the first round of this fight, I think he could definitely go a long way here.
Yeah.
And go ahead and win that lightweight bout. Anyways, let's go to the co-main event of the evening. We got number 3, Justin Gaethje was supposed to fight Dan Hooker. That would have been a hell of a fight, but instead, looks like Hooker dropped out. We got number 11, Rafael Fiziev out of Azerbaijan. Fiziev does come in as the favorite. Gaethje is the underdog in this fight. You got Gaethje. See, I don't know, man.
See, if it was
know.
Gaethje versus Hooker, I would have had Hooker.
You would have had Hooker too.
Yeah, I would have had Hooker if it was Gaethje versus Hooker.
Interesting. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and go with my boy Justin. I love me some Justin Gaethje. I think he's a very entertaining fighter. Very explosive. He's all around just great MMA fighter.
Yeah.
I think he gets the job done against Rafael Fiziev. Now we'll go to the main event of the evening. It is a championship fight for the light heavyweight title. We've got Alex Pereira of Brazil, and we got Magomed Ankalaev from Russia. This is number 1 contender versus champion. This is going to be a good fight, man. I can't wait to see this one. Love seeing Pereira fight as well. I've loved the move and how he's looked since he's moved up to light heavyweight. He looks great. Who do you got, Coach? Odds are close. They're almost 50-50. Betting-wise.
I'm not the biggest fan of Pereira like that.
Why? What?
I don't know. I just don't like. I'm not the biggest fan of him.
Really?
Yeah. But I don't think he's gonna lose. I don't think he's gonna lose. A part of me wants him to lose, but I don't think he's going to lose.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'll go Pereira.
You're going Pereira?
I'm just gonna I don't want to.
Pereira's my pick. I gotta see him lose before I start picking against him. The guy, I mean, of course he lost against Adesanya in that one championship fight, but other than that,
he doesn't lose often.
No, and
not much at all.
And he's very dominant. Again, his leg kicks are something to be feared of. He's got great power in his hook and that right hand, of course. Just a very dangerous fighter. Could do anything he wants at any time in the fight. Doesn't necessarily show much fatigue. He has his times where he kind of slows down, but in a couple of seconds or minutes, he picks it right back up. So I got Alex Pereira. That's my guy. Chama, baby. That's my guy for sure. There we go. There's our UFC predictions, man. First time in halftime podcast history, we got some UFC.
We got to go back to this one and like actually check and see how many of these we actually.
Yeah,
got right.
we'll talk about it next week for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, this has been episode 23 of the Halftime Podcast. We appreciate all of engagement, all of the likes, comments, and everything on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram Reels. We appreciate it. We finally hit 100 subscribers on YouTube. We also we hit 100 followers on TikTok as well. We're going places. All right, we finally made it. So
but that don't mean y'all fucking stop subscribing just because we've hit some milestones and some benchmarks. Keep running that shit up.
Yes, sir.
Keep viewing,
Yes, sir.
keep commenting, keep subscribing, and tell other people you know. Like, if you really rock with us, tell other people about the show and tell other people about following the podcast and everything like that. We are in the process of talking about moving some of our shows to MP3s and DSPs on Apple Music and Spotify. We are discussing that. So we will be looking into not just providing only a YouTube version of our podcast, but also allowing you to stream it on DSP. So not sure exactly what episode that will be when we get to that point of launching our first DSP drop. for our podcast, but we will be doing
I'll
that.
tell you this much: it's coming soon, though. Coming
Somebody's
soon.
excited.
Yes, sir. It's beneficial, man. I love, because I'll tell you what, me personally as a podcast listener, sometimes I'm driving in my car, I can't watch the video. I'd rather just play
Just
it on
listen to
Spotify
it,
or
yeah.
Apple Podcasts. So
Hey, I understand. I'm completely there with you. I have a little bit some time, so I like watching the YouTube, but it's more so because I like seeing how I can get better with my presentation and
Yeah.
how I do things. So I'm watching myself for more of a critique purpose. But nevertheless, it's been another episode of the Halftime Podcast, episode 23. As always, you know how we rock and roll. It's C-Red and Bear Down, baby.
Yes, sir.